Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. We are here again. So, we're now down to the last 5 chapters. This is 5 chapters. Man, I can't believe it. So, this will be chapter. Hold on. This is war. War. And. Okay, so. Chapter 16, War. 17, The Inventor's Daughter. 18, The Red King. 19, Into the Ruin. 20, The Battle of the Endowed. And 21, The Longest Night of the Year. Okay. Man. Here we are. So, I hope you guys are excited as I am to be finished this, because this is such a great book. And I hope you're excited for the next one, and that most of you haven't read it already. But if you have, of course, let me know. Let me know what you think about it, what you like. But please, only by chapter. We don't want to spoil it for the people who haven't read it. But, yes, here we go. Chapter 16, War. If Charlie had gone with Benjamin to number 12, what happened that night might have been stopped. But who can say for sure? After all, the U-Beams were a powerful family. As Benjamin and his dog walked up the steps to the front door, Runnerbean gave an anxious whine, and Benjamin wondered who the nice person might be that his parents had arranged to look after him. They stepped into the hall together. There was a smart black bag at the bottom of the staircase. Suitcase. Ugh. But no sign of a minder. No sign of a minder. Sorry. Hello? Benjamin called out tentatively. Someone walked out of the kitchen. Someone tall, all in black, with gray hair piled up on her head and big round pearls dangling from her ears. She didn't have red boots, but Benjamin knew who she was. Or rather, he knew she was related to the woman with the red boots. Are you... He didn't know how to finish the question. I'm your minder, dear, she said. But aren't you... Yes. I'm one of Charlie's great aunts. So that makes it all very cozy, doesn't it? You can call me Aunt Eustacia. Thank you, Benjamin said nervously. Did my mom and dad really ask you to come? Of course, she spoke a little impatiently. Why else would I be here? It's just a bit peculiar, said Benjamin. Aunt Eustacia ignored this. You'd better come and have your supper, she said. I've made some nice hot broth. Benjamin followed her into the kitchen and drew a chair up at the table. Runnerbean gave a small grunt and sat beside him. Dogs shouldn't be in the kitchens, said Aunt Eustacia. She poured some steamy brown liquid into a bowl and set it in front of Benjamin. Shoo, she said to Runnerbean. Out! Runnerbean growled and showed his teeth. Aunt Eustacia took a step back. What a horrible dog, she said. Benjamin, get it out of the kitchen at once. I can't, said Benjamin. He likes to eat at the same time as me. Huh! Aunt Eustacia flung open the cupboards, and finding a tin of dog food, she spooned some into a bowl marked dog, and put the bowl outside of the passage. Now, she commanded, shaking a finger at Runnerbean. Eat! She pointed at the bowl in the passage. The dog rolled his eyes and moved closer to Benjamin. Benjamin decided it would be best to avoid an argument with Aunt Eustacia this early on. So, he leant down to Runner Bean and said, "Runner, go and eat your supper. I'm okay." Runner Bean grunted and padded out to the hall, where he could be heard gobbling up the dog food. Benjamin wished he could have eaten dog food. It had to be tastier than the disgusting brown broth that he'd been given. When he finally managed to get all the broth down his throat, Benjamin was sent to bed. "School tomorrow," said Aunt Eustacia. "You'd better have an early night." "Are you going to sleep here?" asked Benjamin. "Naturally," said the grim-looking woman. "I'm your minder." Benjamin remembered that he had to pretend Tolly 12-Bells was still in the house. "You stay down here tonight," he told Runner Bean. He fetched the dog's basket and put it beside the cellar door. Runner Bean looked puzzled, but obediently stepped into his basket. Benjamin went to bed, but he lay awake waiting for Aunt Eustacia to come upstairs. When he was sure she was in bed at last, he crept down to the phone in the hall and dialed Charlie's number. "Hello," said Macy's cheerful voice. "It's—" Benjamin got no further, for a dark figure had appeared at the top of the steps. "And what do you think you're doing?" said Aunt Eustacia. At the other end of the line, Macy's voice went on, saying, "Hello? Hello? Who is it?" "Put down that receiver," commanded Aunt Eustacia. "I just wanted to ring my friend." At this point, Runner Bean began to bark. "It's nearly midnight," shouted Aunt Eustacia. "Get to bed at once." "Yes," said Benjamin miserably. He replaced the receiver and trudged up to bed. On Monday morning, Charlie had to leave the house early. A blue Academy bus stopped at the top of Filbert Street at 7:45 precisely, and spent another hour collecting musical children from various parts of the city. So Charlie didn't see Benjamin before he left, and barely heard Macy when she called after him. "Benjamin rang last night. At least, I think it was him, because of the barking." It was only when he was sitting on the bus that Charlie recalled Macy's words and wondered what Benjamin had wanted. He ran into Fidelio as they were filing through the Academy entrance, and they agreed to meet during break and talk to Olivia Vertigo. Charlie didn't feel like a new boy anymore. Today he knew exactly where he was going and how to find things. His music lesson with Mr. Paltry, Wind, didn't go too well, but he managed to avoid detention, and he actually got a few things right in the English lesson. At break time, in the great misty garden, Charlie and Fidelio spied Olivia talking to a group of girls who all looked very dramatic. They all had white faces and wore dangerous-looking boots, and they all had either bleached or colored hair. Today, Olivia's hair was indigo. When Charlie beckoned to her, she came striding over the grass in enormous, thick-soled boots with metal toe caps. "I bet Manfred will make you take those off," Charlie remarked. "I'll try to keep out of his way," said Olivia. "So, what's new?" "Let's start walking," Fidelio suggested. "We don't want to look like conspirators." With Olivia clumping between them, the two boys took turns to relate all that had happened over the weekend. Olivia was very excited. "You'll need me to get to Amelia and get her over to Gunhouse, won't you?" she said. "She'd never go with either of you." "That's it exactly," said Charlie. He had noticed Billy Raven following them a short distance behind and wondered if he should tell the albino what was going on. But he decided against it. For now, the fewer people who knew their secret, the better. Billy would be coming home with him at the weekend. He would find out then. Olivia agreed to spend the rest of the week making friends with Amelia so that she could visit her at the weekend. It won't be easy, said Olivia, because Amelia's so sort of far away, if you know what I mean. But I suppose she would be if she was in a trance. She strode off with a wave so that she could spend the last 2 minutes of break with her drama friends. Charlie didn't meet with Gabriel Silk until he went into the canteen. The older boy rushed up to the table Charlie was sharing with Fidelio, spilling half of a glass of water onto his plate of chips. "Hi," he said. "Everything okay? Anything I can do to help?" "Not at the moment, thanks," said Charlie. Gabriel looked unusually cheerful. Obviously he was wearing all new or very happy-feeling clothes. Charlie realized that Gabriel could be a very useful friend to have on his side. Already he was beginning to think of people as being on his side or against him. He wondered why this was. He didn't see Manfred until supper time, but to his great relief the older boy took no notice of him. Asa, however, kept darting sly looks across the long table. The meal was exactly the same as last Monday's. Soup, egg, and chips, and a pear for dessert. "It's always the same," said Fidelio. "Tomorrow it will be soup, sausage, and mash, cabbage, and an apple." Charlie wished he could swap his gift for hearing voices for one of turning bad food into good. He closed his eyes and pretended that he could. He found that the fat old egg actually tasted better. Now that he knew the way to the king's room, he found that he was the very first one there. Almost. Zelda and Beth were playing some sort of game. They ignored Charlie. Zelda was dark and spiteful looking, and Beth was large and muscly with pale frizzy hair. They were glaring at each other from either side of the table. In the center, a wooden pencil box moved first one way, then the other. Charlie sat down in the large space between them and plunked his books on the table. "Shh!" hissed Zelda. The pencil box shot towards her. "Sorry," said Charlie. The pencil box hovered and then moved towards Beth. She growled and, glaring at the box, sent it back to Zelda. Charlie realized they both had the same endowment, moving things with their minds. Other children began to drift into the room, ruining the girls' concentration. Tancred and Lysander came in together. This time, Tancred grinned at Charlie. His hair looked more electrified than ever, and Charlie noticed that it crackled slightly when Tancred tried to pat it down. "How are you doing, Charlie?" said Lysander with a big smile. "Okay, thanks," Charlie smiled back. "Shut up," said Zelda, as the pencil box shot sideways, lifted into the air, and crashed to the floor. "Crazy game," said Lysander. "It's not a game," snarled Zelda, retrieving the pencil case. Charlie had managed to get a seat on the same side of the table as Manfred, so he didn't have to worry about the awful stare. He had a much better view of the Red King from this angle, and found himself gazing up at the dark, mysterious face several times. It had a strange, calming effect on him, and he was aware that his homework seemed much easier than usual. In fact, he got all of it done before the bell went. Fidelio and Charlie had agreed not even to whisper about Tully 12 bells in the dormitory. Billy was watching Charlie intently, and just before lights out, he came and stood at the end of Charlie's bed. "Is it still all right for me coming this weekend?" asked Billy. "Of course," said Charlie. My mom says it'll be fine. And and are you going to do anything about Amelia Moon? Billy sounded a bit awkward. Charlie said, "Not sure yet." There was something not quite right about Billy. Billy crept back to the bed as a voice barked out, "Lights out!" A large hand came round the door and snapped off the lights. Knowing who the hand belonged to didn't help. Charlie imagined Aunt Lucretia sneaking along the passages, listening at doors. Before he finally drifted off to sleep, he remembered what Macy had said. "Benjamin rang last night. At least I think it was him, because of the barking." Why was Benjamin ringing so late? And why didn't he leave a message? And why was Runnerbean barking? Charlie fell asleep before he could puzzle it out. Benjamin was not asleep. He'd had a very unpleasant day. It was cold and windy, and as he walked home from school, he thought of all the good hot things he could cook for himself and Runnerbean. Sausages, chips, toasted cheese, chicken nuggets, and grilled bananas. Yum, yum, Benjamin said to himself. He managed to forget Eustasia Ubeam. But there she was, banging about in Benjamin's kitchen as though she was preparing a feast, not a measly bowl of broth. When Benjamin asked for a sausage, she gave him a glassy stare and said, "Whatever for? It's not as if it's Christmas." Runnerbean leapt out of his basket, barking with joy and licking every bit of Benjamin that he could find. His face, his hands, his ears, and his neck. "That dog hasn't moved all day," grumbled Miss Ubeam. "Couldn't even get into the broom cupboard." "He's a very good guard dog," said Benjamin. Later, he bitterly regret those words. That night he listened to Miss Ubeam pottering through the rooms. What could she be doing? She'd had all day to explore. He had an uncanny feeling that someone else was in the house. Eventually, Benjamin closed his eyes and fell into an uneasy sleep. He was woken up by a terrible noise, a howling, screaming, whining sound. Benjamin leapt out of bed and ran to the top of the stairs. "Runner!" he called. "Is that you?" He was answered by a low snarl, and then a series of ear-splitting growls and barks. Something was attacking Runnerbean. Benjamin tore downstairs. "Runner! Runner, I'm coming!" he shouted. There was a horrible scream and a bang as the back door crashed open. Benjamin ran down the passage towards the open door. He almost fell over Runnerbean's motionless body. "Runner!" he cried Benjamin, kneeling beside the dog's shaggy head. Runnerbean gave a sad little whine, and Benjamin, stroking the rough fur, found that it was covered in something sticky. The hall light was switched on, and Miss Ubeam marched down the stairs. "What's going on?" she demanded. "My dog's been attacked!" cried Benjamin. "He's all covered in blood." My, what a mess," declared Miss Ubeam. "We'll ring the vet in the morning." "I can't leave him like this," said Benjamin. He ran into the kitchen and came back with a bowl of water and some old clothes. Miss Ubeam stood and watched as Benjamin washed off the blood and applied antiseptic. Runnerbean's wounds were like huge bite marks, but what sort of animal could have got into the house, and why? Miss Ubeam told Benjamin to go to bed. He refused. "I'm going to sleep down here with Runner," he said. He fetched a cushion and a rug and laid beside the injured dog all night. In the cold light of Tuesday morning, Runner Bean looked very ill. Benjamin wouldn't go to school. "He might die while I'm away," he cried. "Nonsense!" Miss Ubeam tried to drag Benjamin up to his room. "No, no, no!" he shouted. She brought his clothes downstairs and tried to make him get dressed. He struggled and fought. She slapped and pushed and pulled. "Help!" cried Benjamin. He didn't know who he was calling to. And then he remembered what Charlie had said. And he dashed to the front door, bounced down the steps, and still in pajamas, rushed across the road to number 9, where he pounded on the door. The door flew open, and Benjamin fell into the hall, found himself looking up into the grim face of Grandma Bone. "And what do you think you're doing here?" "Benjamin Brown," said Grandma Bone. "I want to see Mr. Peyton," said Benjamin, struggling to his feet. "Mr. Peyton Ubeam." "He's not available," said Grandma Bone. "He's got to be," shouted Benjamin. "Mr. Peyton! Mr. Peyton!" "Shh!" ordered Grandma Bone. Several doors opened upstairs, and Macy and Charlie's mother looked down from the landing. "Benjamin, what's happening?" said Amy Bone. "My dog's been attacked, and I want Charlie's Uncle Peyton," cried Benjamin. As the two women began to run down to Benjamin, Peyton appeared at the top of the stairs in a red velvet dressing gown. "Who wants me?" he asked. Me, Mr. Ubeam," said Benjamin. "My dog's wounded. He won't wake up. Please, can you help me?" Peyton descended and strode to the front door. "Peyton, you're not dressed," said Grandma Bone. "Phooey," said Peyton. "Sun's up," murmured Macy. "Bother the sun," said Peyton. "Come on, Benjamin." He opened the front door and marched down the steps with Benjamin beside him. Traffic had begun its usual rush up Filbert Street towards the center of the city, but Peyton took no notice. Looking neither to the left nor the right, he walked straight across to number 12. Cars screeched to a halt, and drivers hooted and swore at the tall man in his bright red dressing gown, and the small boy in blue-striped pajamas. When Peyton entered number 12, he came face to face with his sister. "Ah, it's you, Eustacia," said Peyton. "I might have known." "And what do you mean by that?" Eustacia asked coldly. "Benjamin, where are your parents?" asked Peyton. "I think they're in Scotland, looking for a missing window cleaner," said Benjamin. "We'll soon see about that," said Peyton. "Now, where's the dog?" Benjamin led Peyton down the passage to Runner Bean's basket. The big dog laid in an awkward huddle, his nose resting on his paws. His eyes were closed. He was hardly breathing. "Good heavens!" Peyton exclaimed, bending over the dog. "A wild beast attacked your dog, Benjamin. Something with exceptional teeth and claws." "It's my fault," sobbed Benjamin. "I told him to guard the cellar, but it was silly, really, because there's nothing in." He stopped, remembering too late that Eustacia Ubeam was hovering by the front door. "How could a wild beast get in?" he asked Peyton. "All the doors are locked at night." "Someone let it in," said Peyton, glancing at his sister. "We'll have to get Runner Bean to a vet," he told Benjamin. "And very soon. It looks to me as if time's running out for this poor dog." Benjamin had an idea. He remembered how Mr. Onimus said he had a special way with animals. I know someone who will come here, he said. Mr. Onimus, the mouse man. I've got his card. He's got these amazing cats like flames. Benjamin jumped up and ran into the kitchen. I'm off, said Eustacia, and she slid out the front door so fast they hardly saw her go. What's going on, Mr. Ubeam? Said Benjamin. Why did someone let this happen to Runner? And why are your sisters so mean and angry? It's war, Benjamin, said Payne. Something that's been waiting to happen for a long time. Until now, they've had it all their own way. But they've gone too far, and some of us are just not going to stand for it. And that is the end of this chapter. Oh, wow. I really, really like this book. Well, thank you for listening. As always, please like, subscribe, comment on what you thought about the chapter, what you think about the book, what you guys want to hear. Let me know. And thanks so much. Catch you later.